Yeah,
Um,
agreed. Agreed.
well, comment below if you've never read this story before, or if you have read this story and you're reading it again along with us for the first time. And if there are any stories you'd like us to kind of revisit and discuss on this channel, feel free to share. This is a relatively new channel, so if you like children's stories, if you like going down nostalgic lane, subscribe. We're going to be reading and discussing children's stories throughout the whole month of November, since it is the month of gratefulness and gratitude.
Is it really? Is it
It's
really the month of it?
Thanksgiving month.
Well, that's fair. Yeah, I didn't. I mean, it makes sense. Yeah. Thanksgiving. I like Thanksgiving. Hmm.
So this will be a family-friendly podcast. So this is something
Yes.
you can watch with kids if you'd like. Hopefully, it'll be somewhat educational and inspiring in some way. So we are reading the story off of
I
uh,
put the link in the chat,
great. So we're reading it off of allpoetry.com
and they're awesome.
slash Shel Silverstein. So you can find this story there. So shout out to allpoetry.com.
They are awesome. Any digital world that keeps text going, please. It's such an awesome thing.
So I
Um,
was thinking you could read the boys' lines and I could read the trees' lines.
that sounds good. You be the tree. That's fine. Who's the narrator? Is that you or me? You or
It's up
me?
to you. You can be the narrator if you'd like.
All right, but then you read the next one because we actually got several Shel Silversteins, and yeah, so that'll be exciting. There'll be some in here that Kimberly hasn't ever heard of or read, so that'll be fun. Like the boy named Sue.
Yeah, I
So,
remember reading Where the Sidewalk Ends when I was a
mhm.
kid. Comment below if you've ever read Where the Sidewalk Ends or you like Shel Silverstein, but I definitely haven't read all of them. So I'll be
Mhm.
reading some Shel Silverstein stories I haven't read before. Um,
I agree, and I think that that's one thing. If so, when you get older, you have to learn how to talk to adults, and you have to be able to say things, and that's communication within your peers is a very important feature to have. But for someone to be a grown person, a grown adult, and to be able to write a story that is moving for children and for adults, that means you've learned kind of two languages. And it to be good enough that it's still around. It's from '64. This story's been around for a long time. Um, that's such a cool thing. Children's authors to be able to write this type of thing and it move both yes, that's really cool. So
yeah,
anyway, yeah.
absolutely. I
Uh,
agree.
so I'm the narrator and I'm the boy.
Yes.
Okay, and you are the grateful tree.
Looks
All
like
right.
we have Sean and Daniel watching. Hello, Sean and Daniel. So if you want to follow along, you can go to allpoetry.com slash Shel Silverstein. And yeah, you ready to get started?
I am ready for the
Okay.
giving tree. All right. Once there was a tree, and she loved a little boy. And every day the boy would come and he would gather her leaves and make them into crowns and play king of the forest. He would climb up her trunk and swing from her branches and eat apples. And they would play hide and go seek. And when he was tired, he would sleep in her shade. And the boy loved the tree very much. And the tree was happy. But time went by and the boy grew older. And the tree was often alone. Then one day the boy came to the tree and the tree said,
Come, boy, come and climb my trunk and swing from my branches and eat my apples and play in my shade and be happy.
I am too big to climb and play, said the boy. I want to buy things and have fun. I want some money.
I'm sorry, said the tree, but I have no money. I have only leaves and apples. Take my apples, boy, and sell them in the city. Then you will have money and you will be happy.
And so the boy climbed up the tree and gathered her apples and carried them away. And the tree was happy, but the boy stayed away for a long time. And the tree was sad. And then one day the boy came back and the tree shook with joy. And she said,
Come, boy, climb up my trunk and swing from my branches and be happy.
I am too busy to climb trees, said the boy. I want a house to keep me warm, he said. I want a wife and I want children. And so I need a house. Can you give me a house?
I have no house, said the tree. The forest is my house, but you may cut off my branches and build a house. Then you will be happy.
And so the boy cut off her branches and carried them away to build his house. And the tree was happy. But the boy stayed away for a long time. And when he came back, the tree was so happy she could hardly speak.
Come, boy, she whispered. Come and play. I am too old and sad to play. Oh, that's you.
I am, hold on. I am too old and sad to play, said the boy. I want a boat that will take me far away from here. Can you give me a boat?
Cut down my trunk and make a boat, said the tree. Then you can sail away and be happy.
And so the boy cut down her trunk and made a boat and sailed away. And the tree was happy, but not really. And after a long time, the boy came back again.
I am so sorry, boy, said the tree, but I have nothing left to give you. My apples are gone.
My teeth are too weak for apples, said the boy.
My branches are gone. You cannot swing on them.
I am too old to swing on branches, said the boy.
My trunk is gone, said the tree. You cannot climb.
I am too tired to climb, said the boy.
I am sorry, sighed the tree.
I wish that I could give you some. Oh, good.
I wish that I could give you something, but I have nothing left. I am just an old stump. I am sorry.
I don't need very much now, said the boy. Just a quiet place to sit and rest. I am very tired.
Well, said the tree, straightening herself up as much as she could. Well, an old stump is good for sitting and resting. Come, boy, sit down and rest.
And the boy did, and the tree was happy. The end.
Wow, I had forgotten so much of that. Like it started coming back to me as I was reading it. But I
So
had
sad. So
forgotten
sad. That
a lot
story's
of
so
it.
sad. That's a sad story.
It is sad, but at the end, the tree is happy. So at least the tree is happy at the end. But
Yes, it's like the tree's just stripped to nothing, but I don't know. I don't know, it's a weird, it's so sad. I don't know. I don't know. It's such a sad story for both of
yeah.
them, though. Yeah.
Well, if it seems like the whole tree's purpose was just meant to serve the boy. That's all that would make the tree happy was feeling purposeful and useful for the boy. Um, and so I guess as an adult perspective, you could argue that maybe this is suggesting something about the environment, how men or humans kind of treat nature as though nature's just something that serves us. It doesn't
Disposable.
really have a consciousness of its own. It doesn't have any purpose except to serve us, which is kind of not really necessarily a fair way of looking at nature. Um, but
How, so, for what it's worth, there was an author, a playwright, who rewrote the end of this story where the tree refuses at the end to give up its
oh,
goods. Yeah.
oh, really? Who is this author?
What was that? Hold on, I'll find it. It was the one where it was banned. Playwright Toppler Payne wrote an alternative ending for the book in which the tree sets boundaries and refuses the boy's request to chop down her trunk.
Okay. So I feel like though that there is a lesson here.
Mhm.
It's not necessarily saying, like to me I read this and I feel like it is kind of sad that the only way the tree could find happiness was by serving the boy in some way. But it also just makes you think of, like, I feel like the beginning here, it makes you think of like how when you're younger, because when the boy was younger, the boy didn't take anything from the tree.
No, they
He
just
just,
enjoyed it neutrally. Yeah.
yeah. When he was younger, he just enjoyed the tree, climbing on her trunk, swinging on her branches, playing hide and seek, sleeping in her shade. I guess he would eat the apples, but it's not like he was taking from the tree.
Yeah.
Um,
And let's be honest, that hide and go seek, you can't really hide that many places. That's you're gonna hide behind the tree, behind the rock, and that's it. That's it. That tree's gonna find you. So
That's
yeah.
true.
And where's the tree hiding? You know, like when you hide, the
Yeah.
tree thinks it's gonna hide. Where's the tree gonna be? Anyway, so
I do
there,
like I like the imagery of the boy like taking the leaves and making them into crowns because I used to do that type of stuff like with my
really,
sisters. Oh yeah, we would
I never did that. Yeah.
well we would make little flower crowns out of flowers a lot. Um we
Oh,
would
okay.
like pick those flowers together and make little flower bracelets and flower crowns. That's kind of what that reminded me of
Yeah, we
gathering.
did that with daisies. I think it was like a daisy chain. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Yeah. Hmm.
So I kind of like that imagery.
So
Um
a lot of people talk about the selflessness of this. That's the thing that I liked about it. It's that the tree is being selfless, and the lesson, I guess, from the tree's perspective is when you're doing selfless acts, it's not as if you're going to get rewarded necessarily. As you go, you might have an entire life of doing selfless acts, only to have the final. I guess the finale would be the reward, if any. But selflessness doesn't necessarily have to involve, it wouldn't by fact, it wouldn't have a reward. So the tree's happy from just being selfless, which is kind of a cool, that's lovely. Because most of the time when people talk about selfless acts, there's something they're getting out of that. There's some reciprocal nature coming. People normally work something in where they get
right.
something for it, even if it's just
Yeah.
the gratitude. The tree got nothing. Um,
Yes.
it isn't
But
like he
the
comes back
tree,
and thanks
well,
him. Yeah.
one could argue though that the tree serving the boy made the tree happy. So
Yes.
therefore the tree did get something. At the end, the tree was happy because no matter what stage in his life, the tree figured out a way to serve the boy and to um to help his life in some way, to give him something. And in doing so, the tree was happy. So
No,
the tree
I
was
guess the point I'm making is is when the boy would return for the next go with the tree, he isn't as if he thanked the tree for what he took last time and what it brought him, all the adventures he went on. He would just come back and ask for something else.
yeah.
And that's the thing I thought was kind of beautiful about it is that the tree is constantly doing those selfless acts with no reciprocal, no nature to it. And that's real life because you can do good deeds constantly in life and you may never get a thank you for it. You may hold the door for every person that passes and never get a thank you, but it
Hmm.
doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. If
Hmm.
that's you, if that's the way you want to be,
If that's
then
what makes you happy, yeah.
yeah. And the tree, I guess the tree had pegged that part at least.
Hmm.
Um, because the tree would be a mother character, right? Because the tree is considerably older than the boy's little, and the tree's already grown up and has branches and apples and everything. The tree's
Yeah.
a mother character. So I don't know. It's odd that the people who said they banned it because they thought it was that the boy was being mean to the woman tree and everything. But if the tree is older and more of a motherly, then that's kind of expected, right? That's what a mother does. Mother's constantly looking out and trying to help the child, trying to help their child as best they can. They're not necessarily going to get thanked for any of that. The child's
Yeah.
happiness is your thanks. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it is interesting that the tree is represented as she, as female. But a lot of people refer to Mother Earth, a lot of people
Mhm.
refer to nature as she. Um, but it is sort of analogous to a mother-child relationship because not always, but mothers are often very giving and their children, a mother's child isn't always grateful. Even even as an adult, they a mother may not get the gratitude that she necessarily
It's
deserves.
unrequited for the most
Yeah,
part.
yeah,
But that's yeah, that's I think that's part of life. But then seeing the child develop and grow and benefit from those things, um, maybe that's the reward. I guess the sad one for this one is that the tree is an experiencing it with them. Like I might pair a mother alongside a child as the child's doing the exact same types of things with their mother mother-child relationship. The mother would be able to vicariously experience that pleasure along with it
yeah,
and see the rewards of the gift they gave. But this
yeah,
tree, the boy just ditches each time. He's like, "Hey, I got him. Peace. I'm out."
yeah.
He dis. Yeah, so that's sad. But I don't know. But that means that the tree is ultimately selfless because the tree doesn't get anything. It doesn't get to even see the pleasure that it brought, unless for just for a moment. But
Yeah,
anyway,
just for a moment. Yeah.
hmm, well, it's a good story though. So you like it? Love it? Hate it? What do you think?
I do love this story, and I love it because it is thought-provoking. It makes you think about themes like selflessness and what it is to give without receiving anything in return,
Mhm.
what it means to be a giving being.
Mhm. The giving tree.
Um,
Mm,
but I think on a deeper level, it does make me think about like the symbolism of nature and
mm,
how humans often look at nature as, okay, what can nature provide for me? And not always what can I provide for nature, right? And we can't really exist without nature. So it's kind of like, it also reminds me to kind of appreciate nature, um,
mhm.
and remember that like we we wouldn't be here without the trees, without any,
No, I got you. There's a real famous story. I'm probably going to butcher it, but when the Union soldiers, or the Army, United States Army, was constantly desecrating the Indians,
Hmm.
and tearing them apart and just kept pushing them. There's one point where they were having a treaty meeting with them, so to speak, out in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of a field somewhere, and they would always refer to the president as the Great White Father, and
Hmm.
that's how they would refer to the Native Americans. And that at one point, one of the generals, if I'm not mistaken, like I said, I'm going to butcher the story. He says to the leader, the guy who's being the representative for the tribes at the time, because
Hmm.
there were so many tribes. He says, "The Great White Father would like you to take a seat," and he points to a chair because they're going to have a meeting. And the Native American or the Indian or whatever you want to say says, "The mother, no, the earth is my mother. I will repose in her bosom." And he sits on the ground. And I always thought that was just such a unique way. It shows his intelligence. It shows that he knows how to have that conversation, that he's smarter than they're giving him credit for.
Hmm.
And and I just thought that was it's so representative of enjoying that you understand the world you're in, the environment you're in, that you're
Hmm.
very much in tune with what's going on, and the person you're talking to has no idea what's going on. I just always
Yeah.
thought that was such a really cool thing to say to somebody.
Hmm.
It's so unique and it's so powerful, but it makes me think of stuff like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
I will
Yeah.
repose in her
I
bosom.
definitely love this story. So comment below, let us know if you love this story or if you hate it or if you're somewhere in the middle. But I definitely love this story.
Shel
Um,
Silverstein.
it also makes me think of, because you see the boy aging, you see him, it kind of makes me think of how when we get older, it's easier to take things for granted when we get older. When something's readily available, it's
Mhm,
easy to take it for granted. Um,
mhm.
so I kind of like that theme as well as a reminder not to take nature for granted, not to take anything that's providing for us for granted, not to take anything like that.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
you think the boy was a bad character, like a bad person in the story?
Hmm,
The tree's
I,
good, right?
I
We both
wouldn't say
agree the tree's good.
necessarily what.
We both agree the tree is good, or wholesome, or beautiful, or whatever, right? We're both agreeing that the tree's good, but the boy, what do you think?
I don't know. I mean, that's a good question. I think the boy was definitely self-serving.
That's fair. What if I said the boy, if I said I thought the boy was like doing a coming of age type thing, do you think that
Mhm.
would forgive the kid his life? Like forgive him in the story? Would that give him forgiveness? Forgiveness. Is
What
that a
do you
word?
mean?
Like if you say it's a coming of age story, like the boy is growing throughout the story, so he never really understands. Like he doesn't understand what he's doing because he's growing. He's growing up, whereas the tree's grown. So the tree's doing what it learned, what it's developed over however long. But with the
Yeah.
boys, just would that forgive the kid any?
Well, the boy does grow up and he's still just kind of selfish and asking for more.
Heard. Yeah.
So,
I mean, the tree's always going to be older though and more wise. I just wonder if
yeah.
that helps any, if that helps the boys' case any. You know what I mean?
Like he
Um,
doesn't know any better. Like, oh, well, he doesn't know any better except to just like be self-serving. That's how he's wired. I feel like this
he's young.
story
He's
might be
just
kind of
young.
saying something about humanity. And it might be saying like humanity is naturally just self-serving, but nature is naturally more giving.
It could be. I don't know. I guess from that perspective, like the trees, for instance, sure. Um, but I mean, there's tons of parts of nature that are just destructive and damning, and it just depends. But I mean, I could see that. We certainly humans. I mean, we certainly tear into tear into nature as if it's disposable.
Mhm.
I don't know, and sometimes that's interest. It's it's interesting in some ways, and it's interesting. I don't know. In other ways, maybe you're not supposed to do it. I don't know. I don't know. It's a lot.
Mhm.
Mm.
Have you ever heard this book called The Secret Life of Plants?
Yeah, I've heard of that, but I don't know anything about it. I have heard that title though. What's the
Comment
best of it?
if you've read the book, The Secret Life of Plants. Comment below. I'd be curious to talk to you because I've never read it cover to cover, but I've read bits and pieces of it. And they basically conducted a bunch of scientific studies that suggest that certain plants can sense human intention and that trees actually scream when they get cut down, but we
I
just
heard
can't
something about that.
hear them scream because it's at such a low volume. It's beyond the human ear. So it makes you think about like, is it possible that trees actually have a consciousness or plant life, wildlife in general? They're living beings and trees have been around longer, way longer than we have. So it is sort of arrogant for us to assume that we know more than them, right?
Mhm.
When
Mhm.
really all we basically do is try to use the trees for our own personal gain.
Certainly
Except
do.
those people who like, plant the trees and like
Well, I mean, that's the thing. Like the people who, most of the companies that cut down all of the trees are also the people that are responsible for planting them. Like we have more trees now than we did in the 1960s. We have considerably more than we did, and that's from those companies. When they come through and they mow down an entire forest for lumber, they will also plant because if
yeah,
they don't, their son and their grandchildren are not
yeah,
going to have a company anymore. You can't just
yeah,
cut and can't slash and burn, so to speak.
yeah.
But and there's some parts you're not supposed to mess with the rainforest because we get so much oxygen there, certain
Mhm.
things. But I don't know. It's like I think humans are stimulus based. I don't think we're as dynamic as we think we are. We're just like rats in a maze. It's just the maze is a little more complex. Um, and if you take a fern or any plant and you set it close to light, wait a few days, that plant will move over to the light. It will
Mhm.
bend and shape
Yeah.
itself to get to the light. That's a stimulus base. It's just they're in the plant kingdom and we're in the animal kingdom. See, that's the big difference. But so maybe there's something there. I mean, they're not intelligent like we're intelligent, but they're a different kingdom, an
Mhm.
entirely different kingdom. So, but there's something to them. Plants are interesting. They're very interesting creatures, or not creatures isn't the right word, but I don't know if that feel pain is weird. I don't know, but
Yeah, I also have you ever seen the movie Fern Gully?
no,
It's
no.
a kids movie and it's all about like these human beings who are like evil, corporate companies destroying nature. And then one of the human beings gets shrunk by this fairy, and then the fairy teaches him the way of nature and how you can actually, the fairies can actually like feel the tree's pain. It's a good story. I
It's
recommend
interesting.
watching it. It's a fun movie.
Oh, I mean, yeah, I like all the environmental movies and everything. I think some of that stuff gets a little off the rails, but I got like we're obviously our environment's a lot cleaner than it used to be. We've done really well, but I guess there's nothing wrong with us to continue moving in that right direction, to try to clean things up. I like to hike a lot, and I get really put off by I hike around the Chattahoochee a lot, and
Hmm.
it's very off-putting when I see just a collection of soccer balls, those awful plastic bottles from everybody that doesn't want to drink tap water. They drink out of plastic bottles, and I do it too. But just the collection of those floating in the water, it's so awful. All the
Yeah.
plastic we use, not good. It's never going to go away. So that's really terrible. And that's not necessarily, like, I don't think the earth hurts because there's a soccer ball floating in the river, but it just looks disgusting. It ruins it. I'm sure the animals don't appreciate it, but on the whole, like, I would think people in future generations, they don't want to see that. They want to see it, the nature for what it was. That's a rule for when you camp and you hike, you're not supposed to leave anything behind.
Right.
There's supposed to be no sign that you were there.
Right.
Because that's polite. That's how you don't, that isn't yours. That's everybody's.
Yeah.
So I think if we were a little more considerate, like I said, I don't know that the earth's going to hurt for it or it's going to ruin anything environmental wise, but just it's just you're messing up somebody's room. That's everybody's room. So I don't know.
Yeah.
From that perspective, I don't know. I get a little bit put off by that. Yeah.
Um, RFK,
Here we go.
he cares about the environment. And I was listening to
Heard
him
him say that.
talk. I was listening to him talk in this interview, and he has a theory. So every popular religious figure, Jesus, Moses, Buddha, every popular religious figure goes into the wilderness, into the forest, into the trees, connects with nature in order to become enlightened and spiritual. And he thinks that there's something to that, that there is something spiritual that happens when you're alone in nature. The way he described it was very eloquent, but he was listing all these, all these stories about every religious figure and how it takes being surrounded by nature, going into the wilderness before you can really think clearly and become enlightened. So I don't know.
That's fair. Yeah.
I definitely feel more at ease when I'm in nature as
Mhm.
opposed to being inside in front of a computer. Um, and there have been studies that show nature has an effect on our nervous system. So when we're looking at like a tree or a plant, our
Mhm.
nervous system responds differently. It activates our parasympathetic nervous system. So we're not in our stressed and, you know, stressed out state.
No, yeah. I mean, so it's worth mentioning that all of those religious characters that he's saying, to say that they were in nature when they came up with those things, they didn't have a choice because all those characters are from hundreds of years ago, thousands of years ago. There wasn't anything but nature back then. Like Jesus of
Well,
Nazareth, they had to hike for days through the desert just to find a city. So most of your life you spent in the wilderness or in the wild. Lord Buddha, the first Buddha, he left a kingdom, but his kingdom was so large that it took him days to even leave it. But that's all forest. I'm just saying that it's like they would have all been in the forest then. Nowadays, it probably wouldn't be as meaningful to start a religion from a Starbucks. You know what I mean? It would have been better if you say, I went into a cave or,
mhm.
Joseph Smith. Is it Joseph Smith? Is that the one for the Mormons? I think it's him, Joseph Smith. I think, but he
I don't
did.
know.
Remember, he's one of our most recent religious characters, and he went into the woods. And I think he ran into a new eye or a nunkai or some sort of an angel, and he gets
Yeah.
those gold plates and all that jazz. Um, so I guess that's the most recent. He did that too. So I don't know. It's interesting.
It is an
Yeah.
interesting parallel, though. Um,
Hmm.
all right. So, do you want to move on to our next story?
Let's. All right.
So, should we read Bear in There?
Yeah, that one looks. It's funny. It's a short one, but it's funny. Um, And anybody can comment below if you know any of these. I'll have to confess, I don't know that I know any of these. If I've read them, I don't remember them.
Yeah,
Any of
I
these, and they
don't
look fun.
remember bear in there. Uh,
Am I reading this or are you?
it's up to you. You
Okay.
wanna read this one and then I'll read the next one?
Sure. I definitely want you to read or when we get to a boy named Sue, you're gonna have to tell me, well, shoot, I guess I should read that because that's a boy talking. Um, so I'll read this one, then you can read the next one, and then I'll read. Yes, that lines up perfect. Yeah. Okay. Yes, I will.
Okay.
Okay. So this is, let's see, Bear
Bear
in
in
Bear.
there.
There's a polar bear in our Frigidaire. He likes it because it's cold in there. With the seat in the meat, and his face in the fish, and his big hairy paws in the buttery dish. He's nibbling the noodles, he's munching the rice, he's slurping the soda, he's licking the ice, and he lets out a roar if you open the door, and it gives me a scare to know he's in there, that polary bear in our Frigidaire. Frigidaire. I guess he's saying maybe I thought maybe he derivated the word because you can't use it for copyright reasons. But this Frigidaire's a trademark. But what do you think?
I think it's fun. I think it's like I like how imaginative it is.
Mhm.
I feel like this might be something kids say to adult. I feel like what I like about this poem, it almost seems like a kid wrote it. Like an
Yeah,
adult asked them, "Hey, where did all the food go?" And then a kid would make up a story like this to pretend like they weren't the ones who ate all the food. Like,
yeah.
oh, it was a polar bear who ate the food.
If the other story, the Giving Tree didn't exist, then I don't know that this one would have made it as far.
Yeah.
But the Giving Tree makes me sad and makes me want to like cry or something, like hug my dog or something. But this
Yeah.
story is just fun and easygoing, and yeah, it seems very kiddish. The
Yeah.
Giving Tree seems kiddish, but it's just so moving and disturbing at the same
Mhm.
time. So this one, yeah, this one's fun and playful.
I like the I like how it sort of stimulates that childish imagination, you know.
Mhm.
I like how
Mhm.
it's kind of absurd and I like the rhyme scheme. I like the way it
Yeah,
rhymes. It's
yeah,
fun.
rhyming
It's
poetry
almost
is
like
good.
a song. Like
Let's see. Let's see. Yeah, it looks like something you could have scrolled off on a napkin inside of a Starbucks,
yeah,
but it's just fun. It's yeah. You want to do the next one, or you want to?
sure.
All
So
right,
yeah, I like the absurdity. So we love this one. Yes.
we do.
So if you're watching, comment if you love it, if you hate it, or if it's in the middle. This one isn't anything like very deep or profound, but it's still fun. All right, so I'll read the next one. Looks like the next one is a twistable, turnable man. So I don't think I've ever read this one, and if I did, I don't remember.
Same here.
The twistable, turnable man. He's the twistable, turnable, squeezable, pullable, stretchable, foldable man. He can crawl in your pocket or fit in your locket or screw himself into a 20-volt socket or stretch himself up to the steeple or taller or squeeze himself into a thimble or smaller. Yes, he can. Of course he can. He's the twistable, turnable, squeezable, pullable, stretchable, shrinkable man. And he lives in a passable life with his squeezable, lovable, kissable, huggable, pullable, tuggable wife. And they have two twistable kids who bend up the way that they did, and they turn and they stretch just as much as they can for this bendable, foldable, do what you're totable, easily moldable, buy what you're sortable, washable, mendable, highly dependable, buyable, saleable, always available, bounceable, shakeable, almost unbreakable, twistable, turnable man.
That's like
That
a
was fun.
commercial.
Yeah.
You know what it reminds me of? You remember the Stretch Armstrong dolls? If
Yeah.
they stretch out, that's if this was part of the rhyme for the commercial.
Yeah.
Oh, but yeah, that's fun. It's like a rap song that a white guy would write.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, nothing really profound or deep, but pretty fun.
And this one looks like it'd take a while to write because it's yeah. It's fun. It's fun. And screw himself into a 20-volt socket. That's so cute.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so I don't know. Yeah, it's still funny.
Yeah,
Uh,
similar vibes as the polar bear one because it's, it draws on the kid's imagination and it's the rhyme scheme is really great.
all right.
So we love
Going
this
to,
one.
oh yes, I do. I love it because that one's just fun.
Yeah. All right, so the next one, A Boy Named Sue.
And I cannot believe you haven't heard this song. It's by Johnny Cash.
Oh,
And when maybe when we get off of here, you can listen to it because he sings this exact thing. And Johnny Cash, you know who Johnny Cash is, right?
yes.
Okay, so he's real. Well, he's big, tough, like kind of hard nosed country type fella. So it's what makes the story so cool. But anyway, I didn't know he wrote it until maybe a couple of years ago. I didn't know that Shel Silverstein had written this. Um, but it
Oh,
just
so you
doesn't
knew
fit
this,
him at
you've
all.
heard the song before, but you didn't realize it was a Shel Silverstein poem.
Not until a few years ago, no.
I see.
Somebody mentioned it as like a tidbit fact when I was talking to him one time, and I didn't even believe him. I looked, I was like, "There's no way that's true." But that just shows you how malleable that a children's book writer that wrote such beautiful, funny poems as we've read, and that Giving Tree is touchable, ends up writing a song that a country music guy who's remember Johnny Cash is his thing was that he was the man in black, and he's kind of known
Yeah.
as Folsom Prison. You know, he's been to prison. He's this hard nosed, I'm going to shoot you with a gun in a bar type guy. That a
Hmm.
children's writer wrote that song that he sings. That's one of the songs he's famous for being a bad guy kind of thing, a tough fella. So
Hmm.
that's cool. That shows you this guy has some range.
Yeah.
So anyway, all right. So tell me if you like it. A
Okay.
boy named Sue. Well, my daddy left home when I was 3, and he didn't leave much to Ma and me. Just this old guitar and a bottle of booze. Now I don't blame him 'cause he run and hid, but the meanest thing he ever did was before he left, he went and named me Sue. Well, he must have thought it was quite a joke, and it got lots of laughs from a lot of folks. It seems I had to fight my whole life through. Some gal would giggle and I'd get red, and some guy would laugh and I'd bust his head. I'd tell you, life ain't easy for a boy named Sue. Well, I grew up quick and I grew up mean. My fists got hard and my wits got keen. Roamed from town to town to hide my shame. But I made me a vow to the moon and the stars. I'd search the honky tonks and bars and kill that man that gave me that awful name. But it was Gatlinburg in mid July, and I had just hit town and my throat was dry. I thought I'd stop and have myself a brew. At an old saloon in a street of mud, and at a table dealing studs sat the dirty, mangy dog that named me Sue. Well, I knew that snake was my own sweet dad from a worn out picture that my mother had, and I knew the scar on his cheek and his evil eye. He was big and bent and gray and old, and I looked at him and my blood ran cold, and I said, "My name is Sue. How do you do? Now you're gonna die." Yeah, that's what I told him. Well, I hit him right between the eyes and he went down, but to my surprise, he came up with a knife and cut off a piece of my ear. I busted a chair right across his teeth, and we crashed through the wall and into the street, kicking and gouging in the mud and the blood and the beer. I tell you, I've fought tougher men, but I really can't remember when. He kicked like a mule and bit like a crocodile. I heard him laughing and then I heard him cussing. He went for his gun and I pulled mine first. He stood there looking at me and I saw him smile. And he said, "Son, the world is rough, and if a man's going to make it, he's got to be tough. And I knew I wouldn't be there to help you along. So I gave you that name and I said goodbye. I knew you'd have to get tough or die. And it's that name that helped you to make you strong." Yeah, he said, "Now you have just fought one hell of a fight, and I know you hate me and you've got the right to kill me now, and I wouldn't blame you if you did. But you ought to thank me before I die for the gravel in your guts and the spit in your eye because I'm the guy that named you Sue." Yeah, what could I do? What could I do? I got choked up and I threw down my gun. I called him Paul and he called me son, and I came away with a different point of view. And I think about him now and then, every time I tried, every time I win. And if I ever have a son, I think I'm going to name him Bill or George, anything but Sue.
Okay, so there was a little twist there. So this one is a little deeper, a little more
Mhm.
profound because it's sort of about parenting and how it sort of poses the question, how do we prepare our kids for adversity? And so his father's way of preparing him for adversity was to give him a name, knowing that he would have to deal with backlash and hoping that dealing with that would help him grow stronger. Sort of like the same philosophy, like, you have to suffer in order to get stronger. You have to
Mhm.
struggle in order to grow. So, but it is interesting how the boy was like, no, I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna name my kid Sue. Just
It didn't learn the lesson necessarily, but yeah.
because it's
It's
almost like, I mean, the boy was going to deal with adversity whether he was named Sue or not. So why make his life even harder? You
Well,
know?
that made him tough because he fought all the time, and he had to fight his way up. Because I guess that made him where he wouldn't trust people and all this other stuff. So I get kind of the dad knows that he's going to be a deadbeat and he's not going to be around to give him like proper fathering. So he's going to make it. He's going to like set him up against the world. I don't know. It's a cute story. I get a kick out of it. It's think how short that was. That I
Yeah.
read that in about a minute or two, and it told an entire life story.
Yeah.
So well done. So well done. I like it. I like this one a lot. The song's great too. If you get a chance to listen to it.
I do
Um,
think there's a flaw in the father's logic, though, is what I'm
sure.
saying. Like, because like whether your name, no matter what your name is, you're gonna have to deal with hardship and struggle. So why make it even harder by giving your child a name knowing they're gonna get made fun of for it? Like, why
Mm.
make it even harder when, because there's the child is inevitably going to have to deal with conflict regardless and grow from those things. You know what I mean? So it's just
But
kind of silly.
this would be one that he's saddled with that he can't get away from. Any
Yeah.
other adversity, you might could run away from it, you might could hide, you might could lie your way through it and never have to actually face up to it. But this one's right there in front. Everybody you meet, you have to be tough. It's right at the introduction. You have to be a tough person to deal with everybody. So I don't know. I get it. I'm not saying the dad's obviously not like the best person in the world. He finds him by accident in a bar. But I don't know. And but if I guess if his dad's goal was to make him tough like he was, he certainly
Yeah.
succeeded. I mean, because yeah. I don't
Yeah,
know.
it does kind of make you think of that concept of tough love, right?
Hmm.
And at what point is tough love too tough,
Hmm.
um, when it
I
comes
will
to like
I
teaching
will say
people
that
lessons and
in the modern day, times that we're in now, if you named your child a girl's name, you might get an entirely different result.
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
also nowadays it's pretty easy to change your name. Like nowadays kids are changing, people change their names all the time. They have nicknames, and so it's like
Yeah.
this, you can tell this story was written in what time? Like the 80s, you said?
Oh, who knows? Well, I mean, Johnny Cash was around in the 70s, 80s.
Maybe
Just keep in
earlier
mind,
than that. Yeah.
yeah, just 67. Well, Johnny Cash, when he was touring, he toured with Elvis and the guy who did Peggy Sue and uh, shoot. There she was, just a walking down the street singing do.
Do a diddy
Yeah.
diddy dum diddy do.
So
This
he
story
toured with
was
those people.
written, I just looked it up. It was written in 1969.
Okay.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
times were different back then.
Yeah. But that's always interesting. Johnny Cash is known for being a major country influence when he was younger.
Mhm.
And but he toured with Elvis. So I
Yeah.
mean that tells you back then that music wasn't the type of distinction that we have now. That you could go to a show and be perfectly happy listening to Elvis riffs at the same time. Right along that, you could have Johnny Cash,
Yeah.
or the guy who did Jerry Lee Lewis. Goodness
Hmm.
gracious, great balls of fire. Those
Yeah.
people are all playing together.
Right.
So it was different back then. Yeah, times have changed. But oh, for anybody that's interested, at some point, I don't know how many months from now, we've got a lineup. We're going to actually do a month of just song lyrics.
Yeah.
And it'll be much like what we just did, which I think this is fun because it's just like reading poetry.
Yeah, I mean
Obviously. Yeah.
most songs are basically just poetry, so
Mhm. And they have to bounce around well, and they have to be
they have to have
pleasant
a
to the
certain
ear.
rhythm. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't just blather on. It doesn't. You can pull it off once in a blue moon, but it's
Yeah.
hard. Do you
But
want to do the
I
next one?
love the rhythm of this as well. I think that's one thing Shel Silverstein is really good at is rhythm.
He
So
is the not dark Poe.
yeah.
You know, because Poe did the Raven. The Raven's just beautiful rhythm of the pace and the stops and everything is just the caesuras. I think that's the term for those. The stops, the
Mhm.
caesuras are beautiful. But yeah, he's this guy's got a really nice pace and they're fun and all these are something that you can kind of you know what I mean? They're easy to remember. You could play around with them. As a kid, I
Yeah,
could
I feel
easily see
like
a
you could
kid doing
turn a lot of these into songs.
it.
Hmm.
And I could easily see the kids getting into this and being something they'd want to repeat.
Hmm.
But anyway, you want to do
All
another one?
right, so the next one is listen to the mustn'ts. I'll read this one.
Please.
Listen to the mustn'ts, child, listen to the don'ts. Listen to the shouldn'ts, the impossibles, the won'ts. Listen to the never haves, then listen close to me. Anything can happen, child. Anything can be. Oh, I like that one. I like that one because it's so short and sweet, and it's almost contradicting itself a little bit because it's telling a child to listen to, it's ironic because it's telling the audience, okay, if you're a child, you have to listen to what adults say you can't do, but then listen to me that anything can happen. So it's sort of
Mhm.
like, it's ironic.
I'll take it. Yeah, I'll take it. It's
Yeah.
cute. It's short and it's sweet, but it's cute. Yeah.
Hmm. So you love
Do you
that
get?
one or you
I
hate that one in the
I'll take
middle?
it. I'm going for all these. Do you get a Dr. Seuss feel from these? The way it kind of bumbles around and jumps around.
Yeah, a little
Yeah.
bit. Yeah.
Okay.
I would say it's in some ways it's sort of like Dr. Seuss. The rhyme scheme. The rhyme scheme is very much like Dr. Seuss.
Mhm.
Um,
It just seems to have that playful kind of pitter patter, bouncing around feel, the
yeah.
same thing. But that's they're both very well tuned into the child's ear.
Yeah.
So, what is that? Children when they're learning their labials, like ba ba ma ma, which are words that are universal in almost every language. Ma ma
Mhm.
is
Yeah.
almost the word for mother in every language. Um, but that's children have to learn those labials first. So if you're playing on that type of repetitive motion in speech, that sound, that repetitive sound, then you're playing on a very learned thing in a child's ear. So maybe that's what they're trying to do. I don't know. It's very
Yeah.
clever though. It's fun. You want me to do the next one?
Sure.
Sure. All right. Enter the deserted house, but please walk softly as you do. Frogs dwell here and crickets too. Ain't no ceiling, only blue. Jays dwell here and sunbeams too. Flowers are flowers, take a few. Ferns grow here and daisies too. Swoosh, whoosh, to wit, to who. Bats dwell here and hoot owls too. Ha ha, hee hee, ho ho. Gnomes dwell here and goblins too. And my child, I thought you knew. I dwell here, so do you.
Ooh. So that one has sort of a darker theme. It's almost kind of like a Halloweeny kind of spooky
Mhm.
poem. I like this one because there's like a nice balance of delightfulness and kind of darkness at the same. Like it's kind of eerie, you know? And I love the imagery. Like
Mhm.
when you're walking, when you're listening to it, you really kind of see all these things. Like imagining like the frogs and the sunbeams and the flowers and the ferns, the owls. Yeah.
What is
Great
that?
imagery.
Is that onomatopoeia when it's a word that has a sound? Like
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
to wit and to who.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's onomatopoeia. Okay, well, that's cute because it kind of gets you in the frame of what he's doing.
Hmm.
Um, but so he starts out with frogs and crickets, which to me seems like twilight. Uh,
Yeah.
it's getting darker, and then the jays and the sunbeams bring me up to light. But then he starts ferns, daisies. But then when he gets to bats and gnomes, that's when it starts to seem like it's getting darker. I don't know. Maybe it's morning and cressing at the middle of the day at daisies, and then it goes back to night with bats and gnomes and stuff.
But
I
at
don't.
the end, the ending is very spooky because, and my child, I thought you knew I dwell here, and so do you. So are they ghosts?
Could he be? Could because you were talking about the environmental thing before, like the giving tree, that humans having this a correct reciprocal relationship with nature. Could just as well be the same thing, where it's it's an unnamed or anonymous voice talking to a child about that you live here on this earth, just like we do. All these other creatures that live here, like he's talking about nature. That
Oh,
you
yeah.
know what I'm saying?
See, I initially kind of imagined this as like an abandoned, forgotten place.
I totally did too, like a barn or yeah,
Yeah.
I totally did
But
too.
but
Yeah.
maybe it's because it says enter this deserted house. So that's why I was thinking of this as like a deserted house, but that could be a metaphor for like the earth after, you know,
Mhm.
the apocalypse.
Oh, why does it have to be the apocalypse?
It could
Jeez.
be
Oh.
it could be a metaphor for like the deserted house is the earth after the apocalypse and
Yeah. RFK did mention all those spiritual people, and every one of them have an apocalyptic story, don't they? Don't they? You got to have that one to keep people in line. You got to always have, well, here's what's going to happen if you don't listen to me. It
Yeah,
can't be all
it
reward.
says floors are flowers. So maybe the house isn't a literal, it's not a literal house. The house is just like the earth.
What did you
And
say? You
maybe
said
this
what?
is,
You said
oh,
what? You said
maybe
water
this is about
flowers?
aliens. Like maybe like, yeah, it says floors are flowers. Take a few. Ferns grow here and daisies too.
Yeah, but just means that the ground, they're talking about the ground of the earth, right?
I don't know.
Because the
Gnomes
floors
dwell
are
here
flowers.
and
Yeah.
goblins too.
Uh,
So maybe
I don't
this
know.
is like Shel Silverstein imagining what the world would be like after some natural disaster or something.
I think it's just somebody that's out in the woods, and that's the house. I mean, because in other words, if I told you that all those creatures lived in a house and the house was nature, you'd be fine with that. But as soon as we
Yeah,
put a human in there, it doesn't seem like it fits anymore. Like you'd have a literal house.
right.
But I think that's the point at the end is all these creatures you're so comfortable with them living right here. You live here too. We
Yeah.
all live here. So I don't know. Maybe that's the way of looking at it. The nature, the trees we're in right now, this cartoon forest we're in, we're all it's all our big house, and we all live here together.
Yeah.
Um, Most of his stuff is very um, it's kind to the nature, to your environment, to the things around you. It's very kind to it. It's you know what I mean. It would make you want to appreciate nature. So far,
Yeah.
all these seem like that.
Yeah,
It
it
seems like he
definitely
probably was
seems to
very.
suggest that we should appreciate nature, or just
Mhm.
saying that Shel Silverstein appreciated nature.
That's what a great thing for a child though. I mean, if uh for a child that's enjoying reading and everything, I think every child should be spirited to go out into the forest and explore and everything. There's certainly something to. When I was a kid, that was something that's. I mean, you go out there and it's the majesty of it. It's just you, and you're out there in the middle of all that. It's so cool. I don't know. It changes you. I don't know. When I was a kid, did you do that? Where you went out and hiked by yourself and stuff as a kid, stuff like that?
Well, when I was a kid, I mean, if I was really young, I had an adult with me.
Oh, we went when I was a kid. We spent a lot of summers and winters in West Virginia, and we would just hike in the mountains of West Virginia. Bunch of kids and I, or sometimes by myself, but a pocket knife and a pair of shorts, and how many shoes, no shirt. and just pretty much just hike all day. Just
By
spend all day in the
yourself?
woods.
How old were
Yeah.
you?
We were going there since I was a little kid, since I was a baby. So, I mean, we got photos of us when we're
When you
really
say
little.
us, though, you weren't like all alone. You said sometimes by yourself.
Sometimes, sometimes, yeah. It just
But how
depends. Depends
old
on
were
what
you
you do.
hiking around by yourself?
I mean, you guys could be as young as 8. I mean, just
Hiking around by yourself when you're 8? That's
yeah, because
dangerous.
no, no, it's not. That's nature. You're out there in the nature. You just got to be like a tough kid. When I was a kid, I remember because we had a forest behind my house, not in West Virginia, but in Tennessee. And I remember you crossed over this tree line, and then there was this huge open field, expanse field, and then there was a tree line there, and it went into this deep forest. And I remember as a kid going in there and getting in that open field and being scared because it's just like it's just so much. But I had to just overcome that and make myself go into the forest and just try to be tough about it. And of course, as a kid, you take a knife that you think that's going to protect you, or you take a stick and you make a spear out of it, and you walk around with that like you're some bushman. But yeah, there's something about that. Something about being out there and looking through all those trees. I don't know. That's so cool. It changes
Well,
you.
I
It's good for
definitely used to go on hikes when I was a kid,
you.
but usually with other people, not by myself. I was a Girl Scout. Like sometimes I would play in a
Mhm.
backyard by myself and go on like, hang out in like the backyard forest, but not on like a long hike all alone when I was a kid. If I did hike though, it was usually with if there were other kids, there would be at least like one older kid with us as a Girl Scout. But I just love being out in nature. I could hike and be out in nature all day. I always preferred being outside more than inside.
Agreed. Agreed.
I
Yeah,
still
inside.
feel that way as an adult. I like if I had a choice to do something outside on a nice day, I would much prefer like if friends want to go out to eat and it's a nice day, I'm like, "Ugh, can we at least eat outside on a patio, you
I'm
know?
with you. I'm the exact same way. I would rather be outside any day of the week. And that's if there are any kids listening, I know that the computer stuff is really awesome and video games and everything are so awesome. I totally get that. But do that stuff when the sun goes down. When the
Yeah.
sun's up, try to stay outside because it'll make a big difference in you. I mean, it'll make that stuff won't always be there. And when you get older, I can tell you from experience, you are not going to have as much time to do those things. When you're a kid, you have
Yeah.
all the time in the world. You can
Hmm.
spend all day out there if you want to, but not
Enjoy
as much
climbing
time.
trees. I used to have this little tree that I would climb just in my backyard, and it was my special little space in my backyard where I would go and hang out in this tree and write stories. And my sisters and we would come up with the most creative games outside in nature that we could not come up with inside. We would play pretend and go on like these little fake adventures. Like we would play with sticks and make like symbols out of
You did the Blair Witch,
sticks.
you did the Blair
Yeah.
Witch stuff.
Stuff like that.
We
Yeah,
made
so if you're a kid watching this, I agree with Brian. Spend as much time out in nature as you can. It's really good for you. And as an adult, it's like I said before, it's really good for your nervous system. It helps put your brain out of fight and flight mode and into rest, digest, and repair mode. Just being in nature. It has a
oh,
profound effect on your nervous system.
so when we were kids, my brother and I made a hideout. And we walls, hardwood floors, we did the whole thing, but we put missile launchers on the outside of it. And so what we did was the house that my parents bought when I was a kid or before I was born had window weights in it. So it used to be
Okay.
these old windows in houses. The windows were so heavy that in the inside of the wall, it went to a rope and it went over a pulley system. And the pulley system would have these giant weights that kind of look like missiles, like
Yeah.
well, it looked like a submarine kind of that shape. And that would be the counterweight. So the window could open and close without you have to take the whole weight of the window up to lift it up. So
Hmm.
when we replaced those windows, my dad took all those window weights out. My brother and I took them. So then
Hmm.
what we did was we got some metal piping that was just slightly a larger diameter than the missile itself. And we hung it in the trees at about a 45 at a really high height. And so you'd go into the hideout and climb up this long ladder at the top of the tree and set that missile in there and let it go. And it would slide down there and just the speed of it accelerating to the ground, just gravity alone. If you got hit by that, it would really hurt. And I know that because when my brother brought my dad up there to show it to him, I shot one of the missiles at him, and I remember hitting him in the leg. And I mean, it didn't break his leg or anything, but I thought I killed him. But they were those missiles. I mean, they were really cool. But we had a missile launchers on our hideout. But I know if you're a kid and you don't have a hideout, you need a hideout. By the way, that's a very important thing to have. You got to have those things. It's very
Yeah.
important. Yeah, you
It's
got to have a.
also, if you're a kid, it's also good to play around outside barefoot. It's actually
Yeah.
really good for your body to play around barefoot. It helps you develop healthy arches in your feet. And when you put your feet on the ground, there's a lot of scientific studies that talk about how putting your feet on the ground helps balance the positive and negative ions around you, which can help reduce inflammation. It's really good for you. So if
You
you're
know,
not scared,
there's there's also the hookworm studies, right? That's why the South is known for being slow-witted and lazy because the prevalence of hookworms, because everybody in the South walks around barefoot.
but they
And when you walk
don't.
around,
That's
no,
not
but
true.
no, but they did for the longest time. And when they went and tested hookworm takes, if you have you have a series of hookworms inside your body, it takes a tablespoon of blood out of your circulatory system every day, and it slows you down and it makes you dull-witted.
Yeah.
And that's the South. In any area that was progressively slower had outdoor plumbing, and so they would walk around barefoot everywhere. And when you step on feces of another animal, or you step on the feces of another of your same animal, it would go through your feet, obviously, and people were just infected with hookworm like crazy.
But
I've had
this
a
was
couple dogs that have
back
had it.
in what, how long ago?
Not think like turn of the century. It's like post Civil War, like post bellum, but it means hookworm's still around. You just have to be
hmm
careful where you walk.
Yeah, I mean, you obviously don't want to step on worms, but
No, you don't step on worms. You step on the feces of
and
the
yeah.
of the animal. Yeah. So I agree. Like I was barefoot in West Virginia. We were barefoot everywhere. Hookworm was there too, but we were
Mhm.
barefoot everywhere. Nowadays, like you could do it if you were in the woods, I think. But if you're like around where people are living, I don't think that's safe because there's so much glass. It's
Well,
odd.
yeah, you do
Yeah,
have to be careful. You have to
just
find
around
like
stuff.
a safe space. Like I actually go to a park near where I live where there's like a nice flat green
Yeah.
space where it's well maintained and people are all it's very well maintained. So you know you're not going to step on glass or you're not going to step on like feces or anything like that. You just have to be careful. So that's a good point.
No, I think I mean never heard about the hookworm studies, but it was pretty popular for a long time. But I get you. It's I love the idea of being barefoot. When I was a kid, I felt like my feet were leather, like shoe leather, because I
Yeah.
was barefoot everywhere. But it seems like nowadays, unless you're, like I said, you got to kind of find a good spot or get out there. But now, even walking around the river like Chattahoochee with all the glass and metal and pollutants
You
that
have to
people
be
put in the
careful.
water.
I'm lucky I have a nice park where I know the ground is like safe to walk barefoot on. But
My
you just
yard is when I first got my house. That's one thing I spent a good amount of time is combing through my yard and removing anything in the way of metal or shards of things. So I mean, you might step on a sharp rock or something, but I don't think I have any tacks or nails or anything. I cleaned up my yard really well for that reason because I would like to be able to walk barefoot in my
yeah.
yard. Because that's something about having your feet in the grass. That's
hmm
something really cool about it.
It
Um,
feels good.
I
Um,
agree.
okay. Do you want to read another one?
Sure. Am I reading this one or you? Who read the last one? You?
You read the
Yeah.
last one,
Oh,
so
then this
I
is
will
you.
read a recipe for a hippopotamus sandwich. A hippo sandwich is easy to make. All you do is simply take one slice of bread, one slice of cake, some mayonnaise, one onion ring, one hippopotamus, one piece of string, a dash of pepper. That ought to do it. And now comes the problem, biting into it. That's
Okay,
cute.
that's cute. Yeah, that's cute.
Yeah, there's no way you could put your mouth around all of that. Anyone could.
Yeah, I
Uh,
think that's cute. That's cute. It reminds me of that saying they say, how do you eat an elephant sandwich? Or
hmm
how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. It's like an old business thing that managers will tell people when they don't, just it's a manager story. But yeah, it reminds me of that. It's cute.
It just reminds me of the joy of like getting creative with sandwiches and making fun sandwiches, especially as a kid. I remember it used to be fun like to make sandwiches. And now as an adult, it's not as fun because it's more of like a chore. It's like, well,
Um,
as an adult, you know what you're gonna make. So
mhm.
yeah, it kind of reminds me of how much fun it used to be to like make food. But now as an adult, to me, I'm like, whenever I make food, it's not like fun anymore. Unless I'm making something really original that I've
Mhm.
never made before. If it's
I
something,
love cooking, but
yeah,
I don't like making, like I cooked a lasagna. I showed you pictures of that. I love cooking really elaborate dishes, but I hate making food for the week, making food for the next day
of
and
like
things like that.
food
Meal prep. Yeah.
preparation. Yeah.
It's so boring. Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
but you like making like unique and you like making original recipes, like trying new things.
Mhm.
I like that stuff too. And I also love trying to get creative when it comes to healthy food preparation. Like
Uh-uh.
taking something that's traditionally unhealthy, like spaghetti and meatballs. And because I do one-on-one nutrition coaching. I'm a health coach. So sometimes I'll work with clients who want someone to sort of guide them in a healthier lifestyle. And one of the things I'll do is ask them, okay, what are your favorite foods? And if they like pizza, I'll introduce them to a healthier kind of pizza. And I try to make the whole experience fun. So those types of things are really fun. But when it comes to just like making a sandwich, making something that isn't, I don't know, it's interesting because when you're a kid, it's like I used to get excited over so many things that don't really excite me anymore, you know?
I'll be right back.
So that's what this kind of reminds me of is how how when you're younger, just the simple thrill of, oh, I get to make a sandwich. Oh, I get to decide what's on it is so much more fun than when you're an adult.
I never thought of pizza as being unhealthy. I know that
Pizza?
you can make it. I know you can make pizza unhealthy, but if a pizza's made with just the ingredients that it calls for, I just never thought of it as an unhealthy food. It's very easy for me to say like a Papa John's pizza is very unhealthy. Mm.
Well, yeah, I
Well,
mean,
yeah. But I
usually
mean,
pe
if you take a, but I'm saying if you take a pizza from, like if you take a pizza and you say it's tomato sauce, dough, cheese, and then select veggies and meats. That's healthy. But
no, it's not.
oh, I mean, all that's healthy. That's I
No,
mean,
it's
every
not. It
which
depends on
ingredient?
how it's prepared. Like
No,
for
that's what I'm
instance,
saying. I'm saying all those ingredients though. Those
oh, those
those
ingredients aren't necessarily healthy.
which one of those is unhealthy? They're all
Well,
vegetables
the
and
bread, for instance, usually the way wheat is processed in the US causes inflammation. The cheese, usually the way cheese is it's because of the food manufacturers and the way they process wheat and dairy in the US. Cheese is
hmm,
often unhealthy. Um, Meat, it depends on how the type of meat and how it's cooked. Some meat can be really bad for you. Like if it's red meat isn't nearly as good for you as like lean meat. And if it's grilled, that's not so bad, but it depends on how it's prepared. If it's loaded with salt, that's not
mhm,
good. And the veggies are
hmm.
good for you, but when you cook veggies, you're depleting a lot of the nutrients. So,
Oh, I would have to say that I disagree with everything you just said, but that's me. I mean, I did nutrition in school too. I don't think like I don't think bread's bad for you. I do think there's a certain amount of yeast that's not good for
it
you.
definitely is. It's the way that it's processed in the US. It's not bad for you. Say like you got bread from Italy. I guarantee you it
Well,
would.
I make my own bread, but I mean I know what's in my bread, but I don't think, like I said, I don't think bread's bad for you. I don't think cheese is bad if it's made the right way. Of course, everything has to be made the right way. I don't think red meat's bad for you. Red meat's actually very good for you because most nutrition nowadays says that cholesterol and HDLs and LDLs, they're actually I think they're very wrong about that. And there's a lot of research now that's saying that the rise in dementia and mental issues is because of a lack of certain types of fats, soluble fats. Most people who go on fat restrictive diets and they cut down on their LDLs and they raise their HDLs have higher occurrences of mental issues, dementias and whatnot. I have dementia in my family. Most people who go on like beta blockers, anything that changes the triglycerides and whatnot in their body, it tends to take, I guess, for lack of a better word, it causes the protein plaque in their brain to build up faster, and the fissures in the gyri actually expand more. I think most of the stuff that we think about diets is wrong. Bread, I can get on board with bread not being great for you. Pizza, in my mind, is an unleavened bread, and it's a very small amount of it. But like cheese is protein. It's a really great way to
Well, it
digest
depends on how
protein.
it's prepared and depends on what,
Sure.
like, for instance, like
Yeah.
goat cheese is healthier than cheese from cow's milk. So it just
Why?
depends. It depends on the source. It depends on how it's prepared and it depends on the source. You can't make general statements like all bread is bad for you or
Sure.
all cheese is bad for you. And
Mhm.
just like red meat, it depends on how it's prepared.
Well, I mean, I
So,
get that. I mean, I guess, I mean, but if you take a like a steak, even if you ate a steak raw, it's still, I mean, that's a really good source of protein. But I don't know. Some of those,
get all
like, I don't
kinds of
know.
bacteria if it's not like depending on how it's farmed.
I guess I don't.
So
It depends. If it's organically farmed, it might be more dangerous. But if
well,
it's
it
less,
just
you know,
depends. It's
but
it's really hard to eat healthy these days, and it's also really hard to know how to eat healthy because there's a
Mhm.
lot of conflicting information out there.
I
There's a
agree.
lot of people who can just write anything on the internet and say and
Mhm.
declare it as fact when
Mhm.
there's no like peer-reviewed scientific studies to back it up, you know?
There
So
are there are over 100 food pyramids. So that tells
yeah.
you that the people who do food pyramids have no idea what they're talking about.
Yeah.
But I think that your diet, my opinion is your diet depends on um, as far as it depends on your lifestyle and depends on your location. If you
Mhm.
live in the Florida Keys, then you're probably going to want to have a diet that's more um, low density oils, and you're going to want to eat more fish. If you live up in the Arctic and it's cold, you're probably going to eat a lot of whale blubber. But if you took that diet, that whale blubber diet, and you brought it down to somebody in the Keys, it would kill them. In the same way, the other way about. I think it depends on where you live and what you can eat, in my mind. I don't know. I think I've done pretty well with what I eat, but I'm also very suspicious about the way foods are made. I'm the same way. I like the quality of foods. I don't want to poo-poo a certain food, but I'm picky about the way stuff's made. I think most restaurant food is loaded with salt and loaded with oils, and
Sugar
I think salt is definitely an issue
and
now.
sugar. Sugar,
Sugar, sugar,
sugar
sugar,
is the biggest issue.
and
And it's
that's
a type
why
of
fast
sugar
food.
too.
That's why fast food's addictive.
Yeah.
Because your body,
It's
like I ate,
manufactured to be addictive.
what's that?
A lot of food manufacturers manufacture food to be addictive with sugar and salt and things like that.
Yes, yes. So if I, for a long time ago, I had this job in the morning and I ate an egg McMuffin once in the morning. I just
Oh
ate it. I
gosh.
hadn't had one of those forever. And I tried it. And then the next day I said, well, okay, I'll try it again. So I ate another one. By that third day, I was craving them. And it took several days for me to stop craving them in the morning. And that's because that egg McMuffin is like 800 calories in that
Uh,
few bites. It's 800 calories of fat, salt, um, and sugars. And your
mhm.
body recognizes that as a really good source. Your body says, oh my goodness, I can get all of these things, these calories really fast with hardly any work. So your body tells you, hey, do that again, do that again. And that's the addictive part of it. You should have to work a little bit for it. It can't be that. But I have no problem if somebody, I'm not going to poo that because I will say it tastes great. It's delicious. But no, it's too much. It's too much. I think that your food should be simpler for the most part. Most meals you have should be very simple. Simple. You have to have a very simple diet, not a lot of ingredients. And then if you want to eat a really complex meal, that should be maybe once a day, maybe. I like
Well, I
I go
have
in for an
different
Epicurean.
I could talk all day about
Same
nutrition.
here. Mhm.
But I think in general you can't generalize it because everybody's body chemistry is different. Some people have
Yes.
food allergies that other people don't have. So there's
Mhm.
no general rule for everyone. A balanced meal is typically good, but a balanced meal for me is going to look different for a
Yeah.
balanced meal for you and everyone else. So
And
there's too much
yeah.
that goes into it to generalize it.
I agree. And I'm lucky enough that my metabolism is very high and I run and do a ton of cardio so I can eat anything I want. I'm lucky for that. A lot of people don't have the pleasure to be able to do things like that. But like for instance, because I run long races, beer is in the diet. If you look up diets for runners, when you do half marathons, they'll say beer. And if you go to a half marathon, they will hand you a beer when you come off the finish line because that's a really good way to get a ton of calories quick. It's not to say you're supposed to live on it, but
Mhm.
you
But there's
can't do that if
healthier
you run.
ways of getting a ton of
There
calories.
are, there are, there are. I'm just saying that
Beer
that's
is
something.
still poison. Beer is
It is.
still poison.
It is. It is. It's got a great history though.
And it
Anyway,
converts
we're
to
off.
fat like immediately. Alcohol
What's that?
converts to fat immediately. Um,
Alcohol converts to fat?
Immediately, yeah.
How is
Anyway,
that? Oh, I don't know.
we
You have
could
to
have a
explain it
whole
like that.
podcast devoted to nutrition. That would be fun.
Oh,
Um,
I would totally do one of those. I don't know if we could. I don't think we could talk about nutrition every day or every week when we get old. We'd have to
just
cover some
one
stuff.
podcast about it. Do you want to read another one? I'm thinking maybe we should skip The Perfect High and go to Messy Room.
Oh yeah, I'm with you on that. Yeah, this one looks a little bit. Yeah,
Do you want to read
I'd see
this
why.
one?
I see why you think that it is. Could see
Do
that. I mean, we could if you want to talk about that. I think some of these things aren't true.
you want
But
to just do Messy Room?
or so you want to avoid that one for that reason, or
It's
no?
just
It's
too
fine.
long.
Oh, I see it. Okay, I see it. I'm
I'd
looking
rather
through it.
just
Yeah.
read shorter ones. So I
Oh,
could read
this
it or you can read it, whichever you prefer.
or yeah, that one looks like it's covering a lot of really harsh drugs. So,
So do you want to read
uh,
it or do you want me
which
to?
which one? The messy room?
Messy Room.
Um, shoot, I can if you want. I don't think I think I'm due anyway.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Hmm. Messy room. Whosoever room this is should be ashamed. His underwear is hanging on the lamp. His raincoat is there in the overstuffed chair, and the chair is becoming quite mucky and damp. His workbook is wedged in the window. His sweater been thrown on the floor. His scarf and one ski are beneath the TV, and his pants have been carelessly hung on the door. His books are all jammed in the closet. His vest has been left in the hall. A lizard named Ed is asleep in his bed, and his smelly old sock has been stuck onto the wall. Whosoever's room this is should be ashamed. Donald or Robert or Willie or, huh? You say it's mine? Oh dear. I knew it looked familiar. Yeah, it's cute, but it's not. It doesn't have that same feel as the other stuff.
Yeah. I like this. I like the whole playful chaos and the self-awareness that comes at the end. I don't know. I think it's fun.
You take that one?
Yeah, I like it.
I'll do this. I'll go contrary on that one because it just doesn't. It's there's some parts of it that are funny and cute and make you want to laugh, but I don't. It's not one that I would. If I read this as the first thing I ever read for Shel Silverstein, I don't know that I'd go back for more.
It's
Is
not
that
like
fair?
my favorite, but I still
Mhm.
like it.
Mhm.
All right, so the next one is the Me Who with an exactly what.
All
Let's
right.
see here. Knock, knock. Who's there? Me. Me who? That's right. What's right? Me who? That's what I want to know. What's what you want to know? Me who? Yes, exactly. Exactly what? Yes, I have an exactly what on a chain. Exactly what on a chain? Yes. Yes, what? No, exactly what? That's what I want to know. I told you exactly what. Exactly what? Yes. Yes, what? Yes, it's me. What's with you? Exactly what? That's what's with me. Me who? Yes. Go away. Knock, knock. Oh my gosh. Um, I like the play on words here.
Mhm.
Um, This is one where I feel like you want to like read it again,
Mhm.
because it's playing on the whole knock knock who's there trope. And the way that it's written makes a big difference because when you're reading it, the first Mihu is M-E space W-H-O. The second Mihu is M-E-E-H-O-O. So those have two completely different meanings, right?
Mhm.
So it's sort of, um, it's sort of like making fun of what you hear when you're hearing someone say a word. That's not the same thing as reading it, right? It's easy to misinterpret certain words that way.
Hmm. I don't know. I don't like it either.
You
I
don't
just
like
don't
it?
like. No, well, it's okay. It reminds me of Who's on First. You
Yeah.
know, the old Abbott and Costello.
Yeah.
It reminds me of that. It kind of has
Mhm.
that same feel, but no, it's not. Nah.
It comes full circle. Like exactly what is spelled Exactliwatt. That's what's with me, right? So,
Mhm.
and the title is The Me Who, spelled Meehoo with exactly what Exactlywatt. So as if those are proper nouns
Mhm.
versus, So it's just like messing around with grammar.
Mhm.
I think it's
I guess
cute.
that. Okay, so you're going to take it.
I like it, yeah.
I'll go negative on that one too. Um, there's another one, the next one, but I think we should skip it because it's really long.
Okay.
Roselli's Good Eats Cafe. It's really long.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'd say
it
skip
is
it.
pretty long. Wow.
Yeah, right. I scrolled through it. It seems like a lot. Um, I could do Search of Cinderella.
Sure.
I didn't know you had recipes on your channel. Somebody just said that in the chat.
Oh, yes, on my Yoga Flow with Kim channel, I have a whole playlist with healthy recipes.
Are you
So,
cooking like a cooking show type thing?
well, it's not necessarily all cooked food. Some of it is raw,
No, I
but
mean, are you
it's
when you say a recipe, is it like, hey, I'm Kim, today we're gonna make
yeah, it's food
oh
preparation recipes. That's what recipes are.
no,
But I
no, but I mean
always encourage people to eat food that isn't eat certain foods uncooked because a lot of vegetables and fruits, the bioavailability of the nutrients are more assimilable if they're raw and not cooked. But that's a different tangent. So
certainly another conversation we could have an argument about. That's fine. But no, I just didn't know if you did like a cooking segment or you just had
I
like
have a
recipes
whole
posted up.
playlist of recipes, but I'm not cooking everything because I don't believe that cooking vegetables, it depends on the vegetable. Every vegetable is different. Like some vegetables, you're going to get more nutrients. Um, like tomatoes, the lycopene in tomatoes it's going to be easier to absorb if it's grilled or steamed or something like that. But a lot of vegetables, you're going to get more nutrients if you eat them raw. So when you say cooking, I'm not cooking
No, no,
everything.
no, I'm not. I'm talking about you see, I'm trying to ask you if I go on that page, if it's just a printed out recipe or if it's a video of you
They're
making
all
something in front of
videos.
the camera.
Everything on
Okay.
my Yoga Flow with Kim channel, it's a whole healthy lifestyles channel.
I got
So
you.
yoga isn't just like the physical practice you do on a mat.
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
a whole philosophy, a way of life. So that relates to how well what you eat, how well you treat yourself, and how you interact with the world in a healthy way.
All
So
right.
eating healthy relates to yoga philosophy. So I have a whole playlist of recipes. They're all videos. There's nothing on my channel except videos.
I got you. That's all I was asking. I got you. Just
Yeah.
curious. Not trying to be tangential. I saw somebody had been kind enough to put that in the chat, which is nice. Um,
Yes. Who did that? One of my subscribers. Oh, Sean.
Mr. Sean. Yeah.
Yes, Sean. Sean follows my yoga classes on YouTube, so
He is a yoga practitioner.
it's probably how he discovered us.
Hmm. It could be. It could be. He right now, as we speak, he's doing the splits. Huh. Anyway, um, let's see here. Do you want to do another one?
This is
Or
In Search of Cinderella. I think that's the one you were going to read.
yeah, that's fine. I can do that one. It looks cute. It looks like it's holding really well with the Grimm's fairy tales Cinderella, not the Disney Cinderella. So, which is a big distinction from
Yes,
having read those.
big
Very big
difference.
distinction. Yes, very big difference. Mickey Mouse messed them up. But, all right. In Search of Cinderella. From dusk to dawn, from town to town, without a single clue, I seek the tender, slender foot to fit this crystal shoe. From dusk to dawn, I try it on each damsel that I meet, and still, and I still love her so, but oh, I've started hating feet. Like a
That's funny.
podiatrist, Ron. Mm. So I
I'm
guess
like,
this is from the prince's perspective, right?
yeah, I'm like visualizing the prince like having to deal with all these like stinky feet just to try to find Cinderella.
You know the Grimm's one because we read those for the we did some Grimm's fairy tales in one of the other podcasts. We didn't do Cinderella, I don't think. I don't think
No,
we
we
got to that
didn't.
one.
Yeah.
But I read that story because we were going to do it, and I remember them doing it, but I didn't remember the detail of it. But the stepsisters cut their toes off and cut their heels off, and they stuff their foot in that shoe, and then they're walking around. There's blood coming out of the shoe.
All of the Grimm's fairy
Ooh.
tales are extremely dark. Disney took the Grimm stories and made them a lot more innocent. And they basically took most of the darkness out and made it more happy and optimistic and fairy tale.
Okay. So, question: do you think they improved it or not? I'm not trying to press you for like an art perspective. I'm just asking.
Well, I definitely feel like Disney made the stories more pleasant.
Okay. More
Stories,
modernized? Is
the
that fair
stories
way?
are a lot more pleasant than the Grimm stories are unpleasant.
They're grim.
Yeah.
Do you think they're obviously more marketable now because they made them, you don't wince so much when you read them. You know what I mean? You don't get a little grossed out, so to speak, or they're
I
not
mean,
so
that's just a
cringy.
matter of opinion because, some people love dark stories and other people don't. So,
No, I mean marketable in that you're probably going to get more parents bringing their kids to the theater to watch the Cinderella that Disney did as opposed to watching those ladies get a saw and cut their foot off.
yeah, well,
You know what I mean? That's going to lose some audience pretty fast.
I
But
don't
I don't
think any of the Grimm stories were adapted into movies, were they?
Cinderella is one of the Grimms. Yeah, that's what I'm talking
Well,
about. Yeah.
the Disney version of Cinderella, not the original Grimm story. I don't think any original Grimm story was adapted into a film.
I don't know if I understand. I mean, they have Cinderella. They did the exact
So
story. They just took out all the dark stuff.
Disney adapted the Grimm stories, but they adapted them in their Disney way.
Sure.
They didn't like honor the original Grimm stories. I'm saying there aren't any like movies um that are true to the actual Grimm stories that I could think of.
Oh, I don't. I mean, if there are, they're probably like Tales on the Dark Side or some gory. It's not very popular. Not it
Mhm.
wouldn't be very popular. There probably somebody did it. I'm sure somebody did a
I
movie
haven't
where
heard
they.
of it if they did.
I mean, there's a Tales from the Dark Side that does the Hansel and Gretel story, but they do a modern version of it, and they do all the stuff that is in the Grimm's fairy tales where they cook the
Oh,
lady and
okay.
all of it. But the Thousand One Arabian Nights.
Yeah.
So the premise for that story is that the guy is going to kill his wife, and so she keeps telling him a story, and it goes to another story, and it goes to another story. That's how they set it up. Is the Tales from the Dark Side? I think it's Tales from the Dark Side. The kid gets kidnapped by the lady, and she's going to cook him like in Hansel and Gretel, and then he starts telling her stories. So they do the exact Hansel and Gretel, but they throw in the Thousand and One Arabian Nights, so he can keep telling more of the Grimm's fairy tales. So
I see.
that's the closest I've ever seen. But I'm just saying that I think Disney took things like Cinderella and they made it marketable by taking out all the cringy stuff and
Hmm.
kept all the, hate to say it, they kept all the Disney stuff.
Yeah. Yep.
Disney stories just make you feel good. They don't make you feel bad.
Right.
Um, yeah, which is cool. That's cool. I don't like Disney stories. I don't like that they do that to stories like that, but I get what they're doing. And I watched Disney stuff when I was a kid. I wasn't a huge Disney fan, but Mickey's Christmas Carol and stories like that, those things like were part of my childhood. I can't get away from that. Very
Yeah.
beautiful. So,
Mhm.
I don't know. And Snow White, Cinderella, all those things, those were great stories when I was a kid. So
Yeah.
yeah, I can get mad at Disney, but I still enjoyed them when I was a kid. Mm. Mm.
Agreed. Okay, so I'm gonna read the God's Wheel. I think that can be our final one.
I'm down
Uh,
for that. I think we're-
God's Wheel. God says to me with a kind of smile, "Hey, how would you like to be God a while and steer the world?" "Okay," says I, "I'll give it a try. Where do I set? How much do I get? What time is lunch? When can I quit?" "Give me back that wheel," says God. "I don't think you're quite ready yet." I think I really like this one. Um, I can see how this one could be controversial and stimulate a lot of interesting discussion. It's sort of like free will versus an omniscient divine control, so to speak.
Mhm.
It poses the question of free will. And I mean this one has like a lot of like deeper adult themes. Um, but it's presented in a way that's very much accessible for kids, sort of like suggesting a lot of us wish we could have control over the whole world, but if we actually did, I mean, our hubris and our flaws would, and our laziness and, just yeah, we wouldn't be able to do it if, so I like the themes. It's like, this sort of like reflecting on hubris, humility, things like that. I like it.
It's, I guess, I guess the thing that's interesting is for me is it's God steering the world, and as soon as He hands it over to somebody else, they just start asking questions. So they're
How much do
obviously
I
like,
get? When,
yeah,
what time is lunch? Yeah.
yeah. I mean, what they're essentially they can't steer. It's obviously a ship. I mean, that's because He says where do I set,
Yeah.
which direction am I pointing the bow of the ship or the stern, just
Hmm.
to point it to sail. So I don't know. I guess he couldn't be God because he has to ask how to be God. Um, like the only way you could be God is if you didn't have to ask how to be God.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, if you couldn't be God if you have to ask when you can quit, because the person you're asking is God.
Hmm.
Yeah. His immediate questions immediately set him out from being God. If somebody says, if God really shows up and says, "Hey, do you want to take over?" and you take over, then he's not God anymore. You are.
Well,
Um,
yeah, because I
yeah.
mean, if God is real, I don't, would God ask for a lunch break? Would God ask, how much do I get for this?
And if you're God, you would decide when that is. You wouldn't have to
Yeah.
ask. You would just do
Yeah.
it. Um, I don't
Right.
know.
Those are
I
very
don't know.
human questions. So,
I don't know. I'm not really religious. I like the idea of God. I think it's an interesting idea. It's cute. I think in most of the time in talking about religion with people, I've tried to get in a spot where I feel like when I talk to people about religion, it's like talking to people about like um, astrology. And I'm not trying to denude it or dress it down or say something negative, but it's I find out more about that person than I do about astrology or about God. When you talk to me about religion or God or something like that, the more I talk to them, I really feel like I'm finding things out about them more than anything. And I try to make that divine. I try to make that a pleasant conversation because it's so esoteric, this whole subject, that just people telling me what they think it means is really just them telling me about themselves. And I try to make that the I try to enjoy the conversation that way because that's really cool. You really get to kind of look into somebody's heart, so to speak.
Well,
That's the thing I like about it.
it's just a perspective. Like
Mhm,
stories like this kind of raise questions about free will and divinity and how ignorant we all are, and also how arrogant we all are. To think that we could even comprehend what God is. To me,
You know,
I mean, I don't
yeah.
know. I feel
You
like this is such a little short poem, but I feel like it could raise a lot of those like existential questions. Is there a God? Are we all God? You know, because some people have this idea that we are all just God, and that we're all just consciousness, and God is
you-
just within us, and we're just kind of in these bodies, but God is within us, right? So if you follow that train of thought, it's almost like making fun of people who think the universe revolves around them, you know?
yeah,
That's
that's
kind of how I feel
yeah.
like this what this is saying. It's sort of making fun of people who think that they're close to God. Um,
I think that's referred to as solipsism, that philosophy,
yeah.
solipsism, that God cares for you and that you're important enough to be cared for. But do you know there's a quote by Epicurus that I like? I heard it when I was a kid. I never forgot it. Follow it. Let's see. Okay. Is God willing to prevent evil? Hold on a second. Uh, is God willing to prevent evil? Uh, then hold on. Shoot. Um, Trying to remember how it starts. Um, is God willing to prevent evil? Or shoot, hold on. Let me get it right because I don't want to butcher Epicurus because he's a really cool guy. Hold on. Give me just a second.
While you think about that, I do like how it's equating destiny and like life's course with a wheel. You know, because you hear a lot of religious people talk about like God's plan or the path, right? The path that we're on and how God is controlling it.
Mhm,
Yet they're giving us, yeah, it seems like we have free will, right? So this presents those very like complex ideas in a short way as a metaphor, like if our life's path was determined by God, then there's no point of us pretending like we know what we're doing, right? And trying to take the wheel.
yeah,
Uh,
and that's a lot of that's like the foundation for religion. Um, if, a lot of people nowadays they say they're spiritual, which is kind of a dodge. But
yeah,
in reality, when you talk to them a little bit, you start to find out real quick that they are actually taking on caveats of really popular religions. So you have like the Catholic religion that says you can have a vicar, you can have somebody, Peter being the first one, somebody that can step that you need that person to talk to God for you. You need an in between. You can't necessarily talk to him yourself. But then you have Martin Luther who comes back later with the Protestant Reformation that says, no, anybody can talk to God. God's able to have that conversation with everybody. And that's a huge distinction in religion. When people talk about religion, they'll say that they're not one particular religion, but then you talk to them for a minute, you find out real quick they're not Catholic because they're talking to God themselves. So that separates them out to they're more closer to Protestant. Anyway, oh, here's that quote. I wanted to make sure I get it right. I can't believe I said I remembered it and then I had to look it up. Anyway, it's from Epicurus. I just like it because it's so succinct. And this is thousands of years old. So, is God willing to prevent evil but not able? Then he is not omnipotent. Is God able to prevent? Is God able but not willing? Then he is malevolent. Is God both able and willing? Then whence cometh evil? Is he neither able nor willing? Then why call him God? That's it.
So read that again.
Sure. That's all right. Is God willing to prevent evil, but not able? Then he is not omnipotent. Is he able, but not willing? Then he is malevolent. Is he both able and willing? Then whence cometh evil? Is he neither able nor willing? Then why call him God? Like that's an interesting,
Yeah.
yeah. It seems to
Yeah, but
settle it out pretty
those
good.
are just a bunch of like if then, if this, then this, if this, then that. I mean, that's not like, I mean, that's not anything you can just grab onto and be like, oh, this is the answer. Like, it's a bunch of hypothetical, like theoretical ideas.
He's essentially saying that with evil being present, how can you explain evil being present and a God at the same time?
Well, how can you believe in evil if you don't believe in God?
Well, that's fair. Yeah. But I think that's what he's saying. But I mean, he's saying that how can evil exist and God exist at the same time? Um, that would mean your God is either mean or he can't control it, which he isn't God then. There's a lot of that's he's giving every option for evil existing alongside of God,
Yeah,
which
but
is
I'm
kind of
sure a
fun.
lot of devout religious people would argue that the reason evil exists is they have all these reasons for why evil exists and why all of that, you know.
Yeah,
So
I guess. I guess. I don't like I said, I don't know. I don't know. I don't evil is a very religious word. So, but it's one of those that's kind of saddled into our language. I use the word evil and I'm not religious.
well, I
Yeah.
typically just use words like productive or destructive
Hmm, could be. I mean,
instead of like
I use the
good
word
and
God.
evil. Because good and evil are open to interpretation. But I think the words productive and destructive are less open to interpretation. Those are things you can quantify. So,
I guess. I mean, but you're saying destructive is the negative in that.
yeah. So
Hmm.
instead of saying good, I'll say productive versus destructive.
I feel like we still could have a philosophical conversation about those being good or bad, but meaning uh, there's always that argument. If I dynamite a hill in order to make a cave, am I being destructive or constructive? You
Well,
know what I mean?
when you're you said you're gonna blow up a hill. So if you're blowing something up, that's destructive. But whenever you build something back up, that's productive. So it's both.
I get you. I get you. I'm just saying that would be an interesting. It's I get what you're saying using the words like that, but I've seen the. Am I losing you? Are you
No?
still there? Okay. Yeah, my screen's trying to go to sleep mode.
Oh.
Um, yeah. But no, I just say that'd be an interesting conversation to have at some point, but not today for sure. Yeah. Let's see. There it is. All right. Um, well, I think they were fun. All these were fun. I like Shel Silverstein, or I like him a lot. So
Yes.
he's
So
a
for
good.
this particular one, do we love it? Do we hate it? Are we in the middle?
I like it.
I like it, even though it is kind of heavy-handed for children. I can see how some parents wouldn't really like this and some
Mm-hmm.
would. Um, but I like it. I think overall I like most of the Shel Silverstein works that we read today. I especially like The Giving Tree.
And for
Let
anybody
us
that
know
cares,
your thoughts. If you were watching or listening to our podcast, comment below. Let us know what you think. If you agree with us, if you disagree, I'd love to hear from you. And if there are any short stories, kid stories that you want us to read and discuss, just comment below. Let us know. And yeah, I think the next one we're gonna do another children's story. We're definitely gonna do some Dr. Seuss and some winter themed stories coming up here in
that's
December.
coming. Yeah. Oh, and for anybody that cares for the Shel Silverstein, we did steer around some stuff that wasn't quite kiddish. Like that one story that we steered around that was nothing but drugs, a lot of hardcore drugs. So not everything I'm learning that myself. Not everything that Shel Silverstein wrote is necessarily Disney.
Yeah, I feel like this one, I feel like this poem isn't necessarily Disney-ish either.
Yeah,
So,
but just for anybody that cares, I don't know if every parent would want to just hand their child a Shel Silverstein book and, you know, go into the woods and cut a tree down. You'll be fine. Yeah, I don't think that, but it was still, he's still a hoot, and he seems like a very lovely person. I gotta say, no matter what.
yes.
Yeah,
All right. Well, thanks for watching and pay attention to our community page. We will post on our community page when we're doing our next podcast. And yeah, love to hear from you. If you enjoy our content, please share it with anyone who you think might find it interesting.
please.
All right. Well, take care, everyone. Till next time.